It's time for MacBreak Weekly. John Moltz is joining us from a very nice website, iMore's Rene, Ritchie, and Ihnatko, and Alex Lindsay. It's an embarrassment of riches. We'll talk about new Mac rumors, old Mac rumors, the iPhone 5, and a whole lot more. You stay right here. MacBreak Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 327, recorded November 27th, 2012. Watch your girlfriend sleep. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Ford, featuring lane keeping and adaptive cruise control technology, both designed to improve the overall driving experience. Check out these systems on the 2012 Ford Fusion and learn more at ford.com/technology. And by the new Squarespace. Squarespace introduces a new content management system, making it faster and easier to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. Plus, more than 50 new features, including mobile responsive designs. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code MacBreak11. And by Audible.com. To download the free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/MacBreak. And to get a copy of Brandon Sanderson's Legion, absolutely free, visit audible.com/Sanderson. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show in which we conduct a regular weekly forum discussing the latest Macintosh and Apple news. And joining us, boy, we have a good panel today. By the way, thank you to Andy Ihnatko for filling in for me from the Chicago Sun-Times. Andy and his balalaika appear regularly on this show. Good to see you again.
It definitely is illuminating how much work I have to do in order to do what you just do offhandedly every week. So,
no, well, yeah, and there's a difference in the result, isn't there, Andy? You're much better, so don't knock it. And by the way, you were much missed on the Mac Mania cruise. Everybody said, "Where's Ihnatko? We wanted Andy." So
we're looking forward to slapping him in person. Now we just have to tell you to slap him, Leo.
We reminisced about the time we had the talent show, and Andy played the ukulele. The first time I ever saw Andy play the ukulele. Anyway, thank you. And thanks, Sarah Lane, for filling in as well. She filled in for a couple of MacBreak Weeklies. In fact, the old team is back because Alex Lindsay is also here in studio with us from his travels.
Yes.
Yeah. Wherever you went, there wasn't as much sun as where I went, apparently.
No.
Or you just spent the whole time inside.
I spent a lot of time inside. No, I was in Tel Aviv before the bombs.
Oh, how fun.
And then I was in New York and then Montreal and L.A. and then here.
Man.
Just bouncing around.
Man, you got to give me some advice for long-distance airplane flights because you must be the expert now on... You know what Bill Gates used to do? He'd arrive at the last possible minute, right when they're closing the door, because he didn't want to waste a single moment sitting in the airport. Then he'd run to his seat, cover himself up with that crappy blue blanket. What do they make that out of? It looks like old plastic bags. And then you put it over your head, and he would just, like that, the rest of the flight.
My whole thing is all around my sleep schedule. So, number one is I pretty much get to the airport early so that I can just go into one of the lounges and just work. And so I just work until the last minute. But once I get to the plane, for me, it's just a matter of making sure that I know when I'm going to land and staying up until 10 o'clock at night, no matter when I land. So if you land, because the big problem you get into is you land
jet lag
at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you go to sleep.
No, never.
You will be off for a week.
I agree with that. In fact, what I try to do is take a walk in the sunshine.
Yeah, you want to
let my brain, the synapses know it's still daytime.
Yes.
And you walk around, but you're kind of a zombie. I think this is where the zombie legend comes from.
I engage in a lot of caffeine. I basically regulate my sleep schedule. My travel sleep schedule is mostly regulated with coffee and whiskey. Coffee says the day has begun. Whiskey says the day is over.
That's good. That's a great idea.
Judy Garland had much the same system, only with pills. and listeners, she lived to be 47 years old.
So there. It's a longevity formula. Also with us, Rene Ritchie from imore.com in Montreal. I guess you missed each other in Montreal. That's too bad. Hi, Rene.
Hi, Leo. Welcome back.
Good to see you. Thank you.
I'm looking on it jealously at your iPad mini. Mine still has not yet even shipped.
Well, don't be jealous because this is the Wi-Fi one. So I got it, day one. So and I'm going to talk a little bit about it because it was the only iPad I took on the cruise. But also, let's say hello to the amanuensis of the very nice website at verynicewebsite.net, Mr. John Moltz. Good to see you.
Amanuensis?
Amanuensis.
Amanuensis. I'm gonna have to look that up.
I think that's a good thing.
Just
It is
assume that
a person employed to write or type what another dictates or to copy what is written by another. So actually, that's a terrible thing to say.
Leo wins at letterpress.
I apologize.
We'll assume you didn't mean it that way.
I didn't mean it that way. It's a
so
secretary.
Good to have you back, Leo.
Yeah.
I missed you so much over the
Making
past
friends.
month.
Nobody used the word amanuensis in the last 3 weeks. I believe I'm the first.
I've never used that in my entire life.
Not senior wensis, although that would be a good name as well. Anyway, it's great to have you, John. I haven't seen you in ages.
It's great to be here.
And everything's going well. When we talked, you had recently started the Very Nice website. And
Yeah.
it's
And I'm still doing it.
you
No
know,
one has stopped me yet.
it's bold in this day and age for somebody to say, I'm going to be a blogger.
Old and stupid. That's me.
But if there's one area where I think blogging is very, very successful, it's covering Mac stuff. I mean, you look at some of the best bloggers out there. I'm thinking of MG Siegler, John Gruber, Marco Arment, Mac bloggers, right? That's really you can really dig into the Mac world that way.
It's because we keep on paying attention.
Yeah. But John, you're writing about more than that. In fact, you write a little bit about the the Surface.
I can't stop myself. I keep thinking I should, but I can't stop
It's
myself.
kind of there's a lot to. All right, so I have to come on first before we begin and apologize because when I left, I had just gotten both the Surface RT, the Microsoft tablet running Windows 8 or Windows RT, they don't even call it 8, and the iPad Mini. And I did a foolish thing that I wish to retract. I recommended the Surface, and I didn't recommend the Mini. Now, let me, in my defense, explain before I take it back. The thing I don't like about the Mini, and I continue to not like, is that it doesn't have a Retina display. But I took it with me, and the form factor is perfect for travel.
Yes.
The size is just great. And every time I turn it on and use it, I go, oh, no Retina. But you get over that. Games are fine. It's when you're reading text, it's kind of there's something. And iPhone apps really look pretty crappy on it. But the size is so nice.
So I have to admit, I must have bad eyesight because the Retina doesn't really bother me at all. I mean, the fact that it doesn't have Retina doesn't bother me.
Doesn't bother you?
Yeah. Well, what I do find is I'm very resistant now to taking my other iPad.
Oh yeah, I haven't picked it up since I got
yeah,
this.
I'm just like, oh, it's a truck. It's a truck. I mean, it just feels like
You don't see. Okay, here's the Wall Street Journal. You don't see that the text just looks really grungy there.
I guess I have so many. It doesn't really bother me. I mean, I read it just as
that
easily.
bothers me.
Especially
obviously,
the small text.
Yeah.
You're not going to see this at home, but if you were to come to the brick house and read this, I think you would.
I mean, for the
there's
most
no point in zooming in, Chad. It's not going to.
Keep going. Keep zooming.
There, now you see how bad that looks. Why you can hardly read it. No,
Well,
but that's because we're zoomed in.
And I have to admit that I'm pretty active about zooming things up and moving things around. But like most of my time is spent on Flipboard if I'm reading something. And I mean that and
Pictures
to me,
look fine.
It's fine.
Games look great.
Yeah.
Video's great.
Video's fine.
Great.
But it's 1024 by 7. It's really it's in all respects. And Anantech just published their review. They took some time, unlike me, and they pointed out that it's essentially in processors everything. It's an iPad 2.
iPad 2.
Shrunk down, and that's what we thought it was going to be.
And I have to say the form factor it just works so well. I mean, it's
just the right size. When Steve said
he was wrong. Steve was wrong.
He was wrong. This is this is a great size. Now, admittedly, some people are going to want a bigger one for other reasons, and certainly for Retina. And the reason I disrecommended it was mostly a fit of pique, because I feel that Apple could have put a Retina in this. I think Apple kind of got a little bit, and you're going to correct me, Andy, I'm sure, but Apple got a little bit hypnotized by the idea of getting it down to a lower price. And had they really just said, look, this is the smaller iPad, not a cheaper iPad, because people don't buy iPads for price. Your $329 still is a lot more than $200, and an Nexus 7, which is higher resolution, is $200. comparable Wi-Fi.
But I think that there's more than just the Retina. I think there's more than the Retina display. There's the
that's the question.
CPU hit. There is or the GPU hit.
No, but could you make this at $499?
In the battery.
Yeah, but I think that it would have been ugly if they had come out with a.
All right, $450.
My understanding is that it was impossible, based on physics and economics, to actually make a Retina iPad mini. If you look at the pixel count, not the density, the pixel count on that display is already bigger than an iPhone 5. So if you have to put the LEDs to light it and the battery to power it, you end up getting something that's as thick as an iPad 4 and almost as big. There's just no way to get a super density panel in that small form factor yet.
And they're already. I already think that Apple's skating on thin ice at $329. As it is, they've created a device that's really, really good, but it honestly isn't also ran next to the other two. Other two
iPads?
Well, no, I'm saying you talk right now. The 7-inch tablets is a 3-horse race between the iPad 2, the Kindle Fire HD, and the Nexus 7.
Right.
And each of them has a unique advantage that the other two cannot replicate.
Right.
The Nexus 7 is just a better value, better screen. It has GPS, even with the $199 model. The Kindle HD, as I keep saying, it's a really good for people who just want a content device. It's much easier to use than the other two if that's what you're buying for. And then with the iPad Mini, only an iPad is an iPad. You really don't have to make it more complicated than that. If you want that class of software, you really do need an iPad. Nothing else is going to do. But so much of it does come down to $329. But the thing that really surprised me, and this is something I would never have anticipated, is that you guys are by far not by a long stretch the first people who've told me that they rarely take their full-size iPad out of the house anymore now that they have the iPad Mini. And I think there's a piece that's going to be running in the Sun-Times on Thursday that is partially a roundup of a more detailed explanation of if you're thinking about buying a 7-inch tablet for Christmas, here are the difference between the three. But part of it is discussing that maybe 7 to 8 inches is actually the sweet spot for tablet size, and that the 10-inch iPad it got so popular because it was the first one that was out there and the first one to hit the market. Because when I show people, I kind of have to get used to when I go to family holiday events. I whenever I think, should I bring like the Windows phone? Should I bring the Android phone? Yes, because people are going to ask you about what they thought about the phone they saw advertised, and they really are gravitating naturally toward the 7 or 8-inch tablet and away from the 10-inch. They have to have a reason to have a larger tablet, whereas a 7-inch device, something that's more akin to a Kindle, something that's more pocketable and more movable, is really what they had in mind all along. So I can't wait to see. Apple will never, ever, ever have any problems moving iPads, but I'm curious to see what the next sales figures are going to be like for the 10-inch iPad.
Yeah.
How much this is going to cut into things.
Well, I think that's why it's not a Retina. I mean, you could talk about, maybe there are good technical reasons.
I think it really Rene was absolutely right. It really is all these technical things where to make it into a Retina grade display, it would have to cost so much more money. It would have to take so much more battery power. It would generate so much more heat.
Except that they're going to do it next year.
They're gonna.
Maybe.
They're gonna
guarantee
do it next year. Well, they're going to maybe do it next year. I think that as soon as the iPad 2 gets discontinued, and we all know that that's going to happen any time now, that kind of opens up the $399 price point, and we'll see whether Apple decides that they want to make the super deluxe mini iPad, whether they want to continue this thing where last year's iPad becomes the inexpensive model. This year's iPad is always $499.
I guess that's my point, is that Apple should have ignored the bottom end of the market and just said, look, we're going to make a smaller iPad. It's going to cost the same. Some people will prefer it. In fact, I would have happily paid $499 for this.
Yeah.
It's a great size. It's my new iPad. It's what I carry around all, and it's
still a hell of a lot of money.
I think because they went with a 7.8-inch screen, they really wanted to make sure that it was thin, because otherwise it ends up being too big and too bulky.
True.
So in order to do that, they had to make the screen not Retina, because if you're going to put the battery to power the Retina device, like Rene said, into that machine, it's going to into that form factor, it's going to end up being too thick.
Well, and I have to say that
I do think that the larger device.
I do think that the Mini, the battery seems to, my anecdotal, I haven't tested it in the lab, but it seems like the battery's lasting a lot longer on the Mini than it does on my iPad.
Some are saying 12 hours.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of constantly surprised, because I've been constantly surprised by my iPhone and my iPad 3 and how short they.
I guess if you're going to make a compromise, they made the right compromise.
Well, I don't know. See, I wish that Apple would get rid of their fetish that everything must be as thin as humanly possible. Because I mean, this is not terribly. It's. I wish that they would focus on what does a consumer get by making this device thinner. And making something thinner works up to a point, at which point nobody cares that the iPad Mini is this much thinner, like a tiny amount thinner than the Fire HD. I think to the average consumer, it's nice that it feels so thin, but it doesn't actually give them anything for that. So I just that's the one thing that whenever someone says, "Here's why Apple did something," and the answer is because they wanted to make it thinner, at that point, something in my brain says, stop, let's discuss why that was even relevant to the design of this.
Well, in any event,
I think because it's a larger screen.
Yeah.
I think because it's a slightly wider, taller device that it needed to be a little bit thinner.
In any event, I take back my remarks because in fact I used it nonstop. I used it more than my Retina MacBook. I used it more than my other devices that I brought with me, including the Galaxy Note 2. It was exactly the right size. And I did do a lot of reading on it. It just every time I fired it up, it was like, oh, I wish it were Retina.
It scratches your eyes a little bit.
Yeah, somebody said that. I can't remember. Some blogger said that, and I think that's exactly it. And having then tried to use the Surface RT for any length of time, I realized it was a piece of crap that is. And apparently I'm the only one who thought it was good. I felt it was innovative, and I really like the Metro style tile interface, but it's just not. In fact, the folks every Thanksgiving they do this. Who is it? It's the analysts who go into Apple stores every Thanksgiving and they
Gene Munster.
Yeah, Gene Munster. Yeah. And they record like a day's worth of sales, and they did it for both the Apple Store and the Microsoft Store, and they came up with a very, very interesting result. 11 iPads an hour sold at the Apple Store. 0 Surface tablets.
Yeah, it's a pretty limited survey.
Admittedly, it's not a scientific survey.
Yeah. No, it's not at all. I mean, they did 8 hours at the Apple Store, I think, and then 2 hours at the Microsoft Store. So
all right.
It's
at the Mall of
exactly,
America.
but it's not terribly surprising either.
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly my reaction. Like, let's see. So the single hottest tablet on the market for the past 3 years outsold the one that was just released 2 months ago and has yet to find its feet. Yeah. But that it does also. To be fair, it does speak to the clarity of the iPad. I think that this isn't a Windows show, so I won't get off on a long tangent about this. But I still think the Surface RT is a really interesting product.
Exactly.
But even now, ever since I saw the Samsung ATIV, which is only a little bit more expensive and is a full-featured Windows 8 computer, I'm so glad that I held off on my big, Old Testament grade long discussion about Windows RT and the Surface, because I just don't know why I would recommend someone buy the RT instead of $100 more for a full-featured tablet. I can explain to somebody why they would want something like the Samsung ATIV instead of a MacBook Air, but I can't explain why they would want a Windows RT device instead of something that's so similar but does so much more.
Right.
It's
I would
weird.
think the Surface Pro will do better than the Surface RT. I mean, it seems like it's a more limited platform and there aren't as many applications for it. Whereas with the Pro, you can run anything that you used to have.
Right.
On Windows.
Yeah, and again, the weird thing is, I was expecting that the Pro would be like always be like these $1,000 devices, but again, with these low power Intel chips, the ATIV that I started playing with a couple of weeks ago, it's only a little bit more expensive. The Surface RT is $499. This Samsung is $599. So for $100 more, you get a device that does absolutely everything that this other device does. Is only a little bit larger, has a longer battery life, and runs all desktop apps. So I think that's Microsoft's big problem with this.
Although, as you point out, John, on a very nice website, it's a two-headed baby. They're trying to be both tablet and desktop, and it's hard to do that well. In fact, you quote Jacob Nielsen and the Nielsen-Norman usability studies. They're the usability kings, and they said people were very confused by it.
Yeah, and it's just a very confusing experience when you're in those two environments at the same time and you have to flip back and forth. It seemed like if they could have managed it so that the operating system switched modes, so that if you were in a tablet, you only got the tablet experience.
I don't know.
And if you were running on the desktop, if you connected a mouse, maybe you got the desktop experience only. It might have worked a little bit better.
It's tough to do both. That was always my thought as soon as I saw Windows 8. But I'm
same
telling you, the
time.
Metro interface, those tiles, there's some really slick stuff going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the live updating. I mean, I wish the Mac icons did that more.
Yeah.
Or,
Not only that-
or iPod.
Not only that, but I think that Apple might be missing a trick if they always try to keep touch out of the Mac OS, because when you hand more and more, you kind of instinctively keep reaching out to the screen to touch something, not just because you were just using an iPhone like 10 seconds ago. I think that people are naturally starting to think of computers as things that you reach out, you touch, and you interact with directly. And if Apple continues to maintain this huge barrier between the two, I hope that they have a really strong reason to do that, as opposed to just a theological reason.
Do we think long term there is a barrier between iOS and OS 10? I mean, I know we keep on coming up every time someone says that. I go, eventually they're all going to be one operating system. I mean, they're not going to. It's going to be one operating system. This is.
I think there might.
They're slowly merging it. They're sneaking up on a horse where they're just moving very slowly, and every iOS and every OS 10 operating system just keeps on moving together. I mean, I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but there's going to be a point where it doesn't. I don't think there's going to be any difference.
A point in the future, yeah, but I don't think it's immediate.
No, a couple years.
Yeah, anytime soon.
2, 3, 4 years.
Well, it's that time of year. Go ahead, John.
There's got to be some room down in Cupertino where they do have a MacBook with a touchscreen. I mean, they've got to be working on this and trying it out.
Or
And
a
for them, it just at this point
screen.
it just doesn't work for them. For some
People always said,
reason.
"Oh, you don't want to hold your arm out. You don't want to hold your arm." But it isn't that way. And that was the experience I had with the Surface, which is sometimes you use your keyboard and mouse, and there's times when it's just natural to touch. And since we're used to touch, it's just a natural thing. And I think that every operating system will do it within 2 years. I have no doubt.
Whether it's the Logitech case for the iPad or some of the other cases that I've experimented with that has a keyboard, I find that the experience of touching the screen and typing and touching the screen and moving things around is totally fluid. Like it doesn't bother me at all.
Exactly.
It's like natural. It doesn't bother me at all. There are a lot of things that I just want to do with my hand, and then I want to be able to just type, and then I want to go back to whatever I'm doing. And I don't want to type on the screen.
It bothers me that I can't
laptop,
boldface something.
I wouldn't want to do it on an iMac.
Right. It just bothers me that when I want to do something that's productive, that to do something as simple as bold-facing a piece of text, that I have to very, very carefully type and hit this little boldface button. It bothers me that in Apple's own word processor, I can't use the cursor keys to select a sentence in the middle of a paragraph, because that selection process is hardwired into the idea of multi-touch. Every time that I extend the selection above a certain point, the OS says, "Oh, he must want to try to select the entire paragraph. I'll be a very helpful operating system. I'll automatically extend it for him, because otherwise it's going to be so hard for him to extend that selection via touch, when that's not really what I want to do. Actually, I have a keyboard. Please let me just go right to the end of the sentence. No, don't select the whole
Those
thing.
days are gone, Andy. You're just an old fart.
Well, and I have to say that
Seriously, that's the Emacs. That's like people who
I haven't believed the data, but I know that we're getting to the point where writing a complete sentences is really very old hat. People don't want to read complete sentences anymore.
140 characters. Every sentence every paragraph is 140 characters. Don't you understand? This is the future. I will say that the selection tools are probably the most frustrating in iOS. Of probably almost anything in the OS.
It's very hard to do that with touch. It should be a mouse extending.
Not only is it hard, you don't know. It's like modal. So there's all these apps that you touch it and then nothing happens, and you're like, why is this not selected? Because I want to,
It's very frustrating. No, I agree with you.
I think Apple's though pretty patient when it comes to user interface paradigms, and we see what they're doing next with Siri, and it will be more natural language. And maybe you can't touch your Mac, but the EyeSight camera will pick up air gestures, and you'll be able to move things around that way. But that's probably a couple generations and them waiting for a lot of the market to shake out before they get into it.
I see a lot of frustration. We were talking about this on TWiT. There's a bug reporting mechanism Facebook's just put into its beta versions of its apps, what's called the rage shake. And if there's a bug, you just go, "I hate you," and then it goes, "Oh, I see you have a bug," and it reports it. And I think that we're going to see a lot more rage shaking going on.
I don't have a lot of rage shaking, but I do notice that I do this a lot.
Yeah, that's it. That's the rage shake. That's it. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that. And I think it's very appropriate that they built that in as their bug reporting. "Hey, you IOTA!"
That would be great. That's
IOTA!
Yeah.
He wasn't pissed. He was just mountain biking.
And then Siri starts detecting curse words.
Let's take a break. We've got a great team. John Moltz is here from a very nice website. Very nice website. Does .com work or just .net?
.com will also work, yes.
You're one of those, are you?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody, I've been for 3 years, I've been saying Flickr. That's Flickr without an e.com. And somebody pointed out, you could put the e in, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, well, all right. A very nice website, .com, .net, whatever you want. Also here from the Chicago Sun-Times, which hasn't changed in 123 years, Mr. Andy Ihnatko. How old is the Chicago Sun-Times?
Oh,
it's got to be.
I don't know. Although they do now have decaf in the coffee machine, so they do change something. actually, they just hired a new editor to take care of blogs, and he's doing some really neat stuff. So we do. It's always been a fun place to work, and now it's even more fun.
It's like a real newspaper. It began in 1844 as the Chicago Evening Journal, the first newspaper to publish the rumor, now believed false, that a cow was responsible for the Chicago fire.
We report, you decide.
That's a great start.
Mrs. O'Leary's cow, yeah. And then the Chicago Sun merged with the Chicago Daily Times in 1948 to form the Chicago Sun-Times. So there's heritage there.
There you go. Again, any paper willing to hire Roger Ebert that will offset the disgrace of hiring me, Andy Ihnatko.
I think you two go together. Also with us from imore.com. Nice and slow right now because the rumor mill. Well, wait a minute. No, there are rumors already. There are new rumors.
We're making rumors about the lack of news, Leo. What's going on in Cupertino? Why are they not putting out more products?
What's going on? We'll talk about, there are some new product rumors, believe it or not. Lynx, Lynx, is a big cat. The next big cat, perhaps. And, of course, the long-lost prodigal son, Alex Lindsay.
I come back every once in a while. I'm still here.
Actually, you've been here a lot more.
Yeah.
Ever since I started saying, he's never going to be here, let's get Rene. Ritchie, you like he comes back now. Mm-hmm. Anyway, no, we always love to have you.
I'm just getting better at delegating.
That's good.
Slowly.
It's because business is not slowing down. I know you're working like crazy. It's so good. Yeah. What is the name of the company that's doing all this? Is it still Pixel Core?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's still under Pixel Core.
Pixelcore.com.
Mm-hmm.
There was an interesting article about Google and how they use video conferencing. The engineers who do their database, their massive distributed database, are all over. They're also massively distributed. And they just turn on, they call it VC in Google, the video conference, and leave it on all day. And they're basically working together through video conferencing. That's the future, isn't it?
I was talking to an engineer. This was a engineer for HP or something at an airport, and he said his daughter dropped out of Facebook to go to Google because of the Hangouts.
Because of the Hangouts.
Her and her friends just sit there.
They leave it on.
They come home.
They do our homework.
They literally they don't even do their homework. They said they just leave them on. They open up their computers and they turn on Hangouts, and then they're all just virtually in the same room together, and they're walking in and out of the room and chatting with each other. It's as if they were all. It's
amazing.
Anyway, it's pretty nifty.
I was talking to somebody whose girlfriend lives far away, and he watches her sleep. This show brought to you by our friends at Ford.
Moving right along.
It sounded creepier when I said it out loud. I'm watching you sleep. Moving.
Show title.
Actually, I think Andy's the show title, the chat room already has decided is, it's not a bug, I'm just on a mountain bike. Ford, of course, has made some great strides in adding technology to what is essentially, the automobile until recently hadn't changed much from the early days of Ford. Boy, has it changed now. It's become a vehicle for technology. In fact, Ford thinks of it as a platform. They put the sensors in, they put the power in, and then they have an API, and they encourage developers to develop for it. And they are doing their own stuff. In fact, they're the new Ford Fusion, which is absolutely my next car. I've decided that I'm going to go from having a muscle car, I have a 2010 Mustang, which I love, to being a responsible citizen driving a plug-in hybrid.
Nice.
More than 100 miles per gallon E. That's the new designation. It uses electric around town, and then goes to the EcoBoost engine if it needs to go a longer distance or you need more performance. Really cool. And this new Fusion, whether you get the plug-in hybrid, the hybrid, or the petrol, as my friend Helen Mullally calls it, the petrol version, We call it gas here in the U.S.
Petrol.
Petrol. More than, when I was in Australia, we have so many viewers outside the U.S., I should call it petrol.
Yes.
And aluminium.
I can't get into the aluminium.
Can't get an aluminium?
At the Apple shows, they'll suck down a lot of bandwidth. That extra syllable is really going to cost you.
Aluminium. So the 2013 Fusion has 2 new technologies that I think are really interesting. We're moving towards, Ford's always told me we don't want to make autonomous vehicles because we learned, Alan was at Boeing for years, a Boeing engineer. He designed the 777 cockpit. And he said, you don't want to get rid of the pilot. What you want to do is give the pilot information so they're better pilots. You don't want to let the car drive, maybe not yet anyway, but you want to have the car be smart enough to give the information to the driver that it can use. For instance, they got this new lane keeping thing. So there's a dedicated camera in the front of the car that watches one thing, the lanes. And then if you veer, do you have the video, Chad? Because it's really cool. If you veer a little bit, first it'll vibrate the steering wheel. It's kind of like bot stots. Here in California, we have bumps in the road for the lanes, and so you go over. But this is done by the car. And then if you go too far, it actually eases you back into the lane. Now somebody said, well, what happens if you decide to change lanes? Well, when you turn on the blinker, it disables it. So it knows you're changing lanes intentionally.
Don't try to be swerving around. It's not going to let you do that.
Well, it'll let you do it, but
no reckless
but it'll
driving.
Discourage this. So this is really cool.
You'll be like fighting, like,
Did you see the driver alert warning rest suggested? This is so cool. So this camera in the front's watching those stripes, and then if you start veering out of the lane, it'll let you know and pull you back into the lane.
This is going to be very difficult in LA though, because the problem is that you want to do the Boston lane change, which is just like you just don't warn anybody, you just start moving over.
Yeah, don't do that.
And this won't let you do that anymore.
I think you can override. I mean, it just urges you to do the right thing.
It just vibrates, right?
Yeah, vibrates.
You know you're doing it. Yeah.
It looks great.
So if you're falling asleep.
Oh yeah, and it'll let you know if you're falling asleep. Yeah. And then there's
fills up your coffee.
You know what it needs is it needs a little water spritzer. So like if you do it twice in a row, it like blows like cold water in your face.
Hey, wake up.
And then it's got like a little Red Bull dispenser.
And then how about this? There's also radar in the front of the car that's scanning the road ahead, and this is so they can do adaptive. I've always wanted this cruise control. Normally you set the cruise control, you say the same speed. This knows what's going on ahead of you, slows you down.
I was on the 5 yesterday, and people kept on driving slowly in front of me.
No, this will adjust the cruise control when slower traffic is detected. It also has a collision warning. It'll do a heads-up red lights on the windshield, flashing red lights if you are about to have a collision. It'll say, so, whoa. So this is really good. It's in the 2013 Ford Fusion, but it'll be in many others. I want you to go to a Ford dealer and test drive it, or do as we just did with those videos. Go to Ford.com/technology, and you can see what they're doing. Just amazing stuff. I love the idea of a cruise control knowing what the appropriate speed is. Makes you a better driver. Yeah. Love that. Ford.com/technology. Mm-hmm. More kids than ever clamor for iPhones and iPads this holiday season. Every year they do this. They go out, and Nielsen does the annual holiday shopping study, kids age 6 to 12. Number one device, 48% of kids said they wanted an iPad. Surprisingly to me, the Nintendo Wii U came in second.
I'm surprised it's only 48%.
Yeah.
What kid does not want an iPad?
Well, 39% wanted a Wii
kid
U.
who already has one.
Yeah,
right.
Then the iPod Touch. So if you put the iPod Touch and the iPad together, that's 84% of all respondents.
Well, but the problem is this isn't a it's not exclusive. You know, so it's not.
Oh,
like
you're right, because 33% iPhone
adds up to 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Also, how do they ask the question? Do they say if would you be pleased to receive? Are they saying if you can only get one of these 3 things, which one would you take? Also, when it comes to game consoles, I think most kids that I talk to at least are more aware of what titles are available for what platform. They would say, I want whatever can play Assassin's Creed, the new one that came out just last month. They don't particularly care about the hot technology.
I'm looking at Nielsen.com. I don't see the question. But what's good is they do this every year, so you can at least compare apples to apples in terms of year-over-year changes. There's the iPad, the Wii U, the iPod Touch. The iPad Mini is also in there, equal to the iPod Touch, both at 36%, and then the iPhone. Computer is 31%. Xbox Connect, not the Xbox, but the Connect, 31%. A tablet other than the iPad, this might be a little concerning, 29%. So that shows you the awareness that there are. I'm in some ways surprised that kids 6 to 12 know there's anything but an iPad out there, but they do.
I saw a lot more. I was at Disneyland over the weekend, and I saw a lot more
Android
tablets and notes and that type of thing than I'd seen before.
Older kids, iPad, computer, tablet, computer other than iPad, then the Wii U, the iPhone, and a smart TV. And an e-reader, 13%. Smartphone other than iPhone, 12%. iPhone's still the winner among the 13 and up kids. I don't know how valuable that is, but I think it's kind of an interesting. They do this every year. The spaceship is slowing down, I'm sorry to say. I'm really looking forward to seeing this new Apple campus in Cupertino.
It does look very futuristic.
Yeah. Not ready, maybe, according to Bloomberg, until 2016 now. Because the company is revising its plans. There's a new timetable.
They're getting rid of a bridge. They are moving the theater away from the like literally, they're getting rid of a little bridge. They're moving the theater away from the road, and they have less underground parking. I think those are the three big things that they've changed, and these are pretty common for to make adjustments.
Yeah,
more trees,
and you have to get approval each time.
Yep.
Yeah, 1,000-seat auditorium. That's big. That's bigger than the one at the One Infinite Loop.
I think One Infinite Loop is like 400
it's
or
tiny.
500.
Yeah.
Much,
but 1,000 is much smaller than Moscone West, where they do the big announcements.
Moscone West, well, no. When they do
that's
the big
several thousand.
Yeah, that's several thousand. But when they do the Yerba Buena is about 700 or 800. So basically what this allows for is at 1,000 people, Apple could theoretically do all their announcements from their campus.
Bet you that's the plan.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that bugs them is that when they book somewhere outside of Apple, there are leaks. Everybody knows.
Right. And it's also that it's a much larger cost, and I think a lot of reporters are going to want to go to the spaceship.
2016. Maybe by then I'll be invited again.
Yeah, I'm hoping they don't move to that for all events, because it's difficult enough for people outside of a certain radius of Cupertino to attend these events. But now when you add to you have to get a hotel within a certain within a certain closeness to Cupertino now, because if you were instead of the huge field to choose from in San Francisco, now it's really, as a practical thing, you might want to get a hotel in the San Jose area, and I could find a flight that will get you to San Jose instead of San Francisco. It'll just add at least I did actually calculate this out. It will cost me an extra $400 to $500 to attend an event. If it was held in Cupertino, then it's held in San Francisco.
What are you renting as private bus?
Because I have to get myself from San Francisco down to Cupertino, and that costs.
You could fly to San Jose, can't you?
Fly to San Jose, yeah.
Yeah, but there are more flights, or I'm sorry, maybe I'm talking about an Andy problem as opposed to a general problem.
I think this is an Andy problem.
It's an East Coast problem.
San Jose Airport is a big airport. It's a nice airport.
It's very comfortable.
It's a comfortable
I fly in
airport.
and out of San Jose a lot.
But Virgin
I'll go, but I mean, it's like,
well, here's the question, Andy.
I'll take Andy's invitation. I'll drive.
Let's get down to the major problem. I know that if there's an event in San Francisco, I already know two things for sure. I know where I can get my comic books. I know where I can get a burrito. Okay? If I know where I can get my comics, I know where I can get a burrito. I'm okay having an event in that city.
I just want to say
I'm going to solve both those problems.
There are a lot of good burritos in San Jose.
I know, but which one?
We'll work on that.
Cupertino comic book.
Now, Andy, would
store.
you, if they had an event in Boston,
Legends,
where it was,
Comics, and Games, Cupertino, California. I think you're going to like this, Andy. legendscomicsandgames.com. Let's just go take a look.
Not only comics, but they have Legends.
They have Legends, they have comics, they have games. They're just around the corner from the Apple campus. Clearly, they use the fonts that you recommend from that company, whatchamacallit. This is good. 2 stories inside the Valco shopping mall. 2 stories. Oh, no.
I have to go to a mall.
You can shop next to Scott Forrestal, Andy.
He's been living there. I think actually Scott's got a job now there.
Go by the next issue of 47 Ronin together. Alex, I'm sorry, Alex, you're about to say something that I'm sure.
Well, as a reporter,
every time you say something that's helpful, I need to know what it is.
As a reporter, the question is would you go to a telecast? So it's like a full screen, giant screen with where you're also going to get a chance to test the whatever the new thing is, but it would gather you up where you weren't actually in the same room as whoever the speaker was.
There are two levels of value to me to attending an Apple event. Level number one is hands-on, even if it's just 20 or 30 minutes with the actual device itself.
Huge.
Level two is a meeting with people where I can ask direct questions and get direct answers.
So, but what I'm saying is so if you had people that you could ask questions of, they're not necessarily, Tim Cook, but they're the people that you would ask the questions of. They had all the iPads there, but the presentation was on a giant, 30-foot screen. Would you go?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah. All things being equal, if I had a chance between either attending an event locally or taking 2 or 3 days out of my week,
that's
exactly. $1,000 out of my schedule. As I said, there are often some side benefits to attending in person. I really enjoy the opportunity to reconnect with certain Apple personnel. Even I'm not talking about the private meeting at a hotel suite somewhere or in a roped off area. I'm talking about you're waiting in line for a half hour to 45 minutes and you bump into somebody that you always enjoy bumping into. And even though you're just having a 10-minute casual conversation, you always enjoy that 10-minute conversation because Apple has some really cool people working for them. And I just enjoy seeing those people time and time and time again. Right. So it's not as though I would always choose the local over the flight out to get there. But at the end of the year when I'm working out, oh man, and now here's is there somebody I know who has a sofa that's at least better than a sectional that I could sleep because that's the only way I can afford to go to this place because it's too late in the year. I've already blown my travel budget for the year.
Right.
I'll pick you up on the way down.
Okay.
We'll all drive together.
We'll carpool.
Can I sleep in the car?
Yeah.
Does your new Ford
it's very quiet because it's electric.
Yeah. I'll get one with bench seats.
Leo can sleep too because it drives itself.
That's right. Yeah, I'll just put on the cruise control and lane correction, and I'll just
tell it where to go.
Cupertino, Jeeves. I don't know. I think there's going to be a real hot demand for that first meeting at the spaceship.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I hope that they even do things where they're just saying we know that people are curious. We're having a limited open house where if you really want to take a look, we've set aside 4 days spread across 6 weeks where you can just come in, and it's not going to be a PR thing. It's just going to be we would much rather have you Nimrods come in all on the same day so that we know when to put things over the hover car so that people can't see it when they come in.
There's a name for those rooms. I was talking to Sal Segoyan. He was on the cruise. Sal's a longtime Apple employee. Since he was there before Jobs came back for a few months, and then Jobs came back and worked a lot with Steve. And there's a name for those secret rooms. I can't remember what it is. Shoot. Sal's got such stories. So the other shoe, or the other Q, drops. Eddie Q, now responsible for iOS, moved over from iTunes in the reorg last month. He's a senior vice president, has fired Richard Williamson. He was the guy in charge of Maps. So Forstall and now Williamson. Apple is very much, or at least Q is very much taking charge of this and working hard to solve the Maps issue. In fact, they're even saying, TomTom's saying they're being asked to fix landmark and navigation issues, the point of interest issues.
Yeah, what it sounds like is that I guess Apple has been prioritizing the Yelp information, which is not nearly as accurate as the TomTom information, and so I think they're trying to get more of that data from TomTom than from Yelp.
TomTom has always said it's not our fault. Right. Our stuff works great.
Of all the mapping that I've used, because I've used TomTom for probably 10, 12 years, and it's been the most accurate of the bunch that I've used.
Well, this it's pretty clear from this Bloomberg story that Apple is taking its the map issue very seriously, firing yet another person responsible for it.
Oh, they have to. I mean, this is, I still think, one of the largest mistakes that they've made in a long time.
Do you think, guys, that it hurt the sales of... I know people who haven't upgraded to iOS 6 with older devices for that reason.
I wish I hadn't.
Because the upgrade feels, in that respect, like a downgrade, right?
Yeah, because the web version of Google Maps is not the same as having the map built in, and the Apple Maps does not work as well as Google Maps.
We're seeing good sales for Samsung devices. Samsung just said they have 5 million Galaxy Note 2s in the channel. Not sold, not sell-through, but 5 million in the channel. Do you think people are actually, this is significant enough that people are not buying iPhones as a result?
I'm sure some people probably aren't, but at the same time, the iPhone 5 has done well enough to push Apple over Android in October sales. I think that just came out today in the U.S.
They can't make enough of them, and that's the other problem. I mean, obviously, there's enough demand. They can't make enough.
I think that people. I don't think people are going to be turning down an iPhone because of Maps. I think it actually works well enough for most people. I mean, I think people have a low enough set of expectations for Maps that it's not a deal breaker for them. I think that the reason why Android phones have been selling so well is that they've been making a lot of really great phones.
Piper Jaffray, Jen Munster.
My wife will curse out any map application.
Yeah, they're all bad.
I mean, that's right. She
needs the rage
Maps
shake
for years. She'll be perfectly fine cursing out Apple Maps for years.
What I still like to know is, they brought Eddie Q on and they gave Eddie Q, and he's their well-known fixer. He was put in charge of MobileMe. He's been put in charge of Siri now, and Scott Forstall was let go, and they've let go this gentleman now too. But who are they replacing them with? It's very hard to get. I mean, Google has spent years building up an army of map people, and TomTom, they bought. I think they bought TeleAtlas, Nokia bought Navtech.
Right.
They all have armies of mapping people, and it's very easy for Google to go out and buy a Snapseed or buy another one of these companies and get good designers and good developers and make better looking apps. But it's really hard to get the engineers to make good server-side infrastructure, and that's where Apple keeps having all their pain, whether it's Maps, having data cleansing, data sanitizing issues, or Game Center falling all over itself. And that's going to be really hard to fix.
We talked about this on TWiT also on Sunday. That's why one blogger is recommending that Apple buy Twitter, not for the product, but for the engineers, because Twitter's got engineers who've solved scaling problems. I don't know if they have the engineers who can solve the networking issues Apple's having with iCloud and so forth, but I think they're more usability issues than they are scaling issues.
And it's hard because I think an average engineering school is not generally pumping out students that are going to be able to go in and make those decisions well. I mean, that's 10 or 15 years of experience, and if you've got 10 or 15 years of engineering experience, you are working for someone and you are generally getting paid well if they can deal with you.
Yeah.
The point is that it's just that today that is such a big. You really. I know that a lot of the acquisitions we see are just engineering. They're hiring lots of people by buying the whole company.
Yeah,
I don't think Twitter solves it.
I think we're about to say almost the exact same thing. I don't think they need more personnel. I think they need a fundamental change in their cultural attitude about these kind of apps. I think that this is one area in which Apple is kind of out of step with what people are naturally gravitating towards, where they don't want the best closed cloud system ever. They'd much rather have an adequate cloud system that lets them do pretty much anything they want to do with data. And I think that's one place where Apple's idea of we're going to control everything, but we're going to make it the best experience possible. I think that's one area in which that attitude kind of bites Apple in the butt.
And I think to further Andy's point, and I agree with that completely, is that buying Twitter doesn't solve their problems. I mean, yes, they can scale, but scaling Game Center is different. Apple's still using web objects for iTunes and for the Apple Store, and they need, as they're doing a lot to improve Cocoa and their programming interfaces every year incrementally. And there's no sign that there's no sign that they're as fearless with services as they are with ditching things like the floppy disk or USB or stuff like that. And they really need to be not afraid, but they need to be wary about Google and Amazon and companies that grew up on the cloud, and they have to be as fearless and as future thinking in that kind of infrastructure, because when you look at Google now compared to Siri, Apple is falling behind very quickly.
That's what Patrick Gibson's writing in this blog, patrickgibson.tumblr.com. He says all of the web problems Apple's having, they can't update their online store without taking it offline. For instance, that's kind of, if Amazon had to take its store offline every time they updated it, they would never be online. Game Center was brought down by that word game, right?
Letterpress.
Letterpress, yeah. Apple requires you to refriend everyone all the time on Game Center, Find My Friends, and shared photo streams. Notes requires an email account to sync. App stores and iTunes still powered by web objects, which I think many agree is out of date.
Way past its
That was a matter of fact when it looked like Next was going to go under, not be able to really go forward as a hardware company, and neither were they going to be going forward as an OS company. That I think Steve Jobs was actually promoting web objects as this is going to be the engine that powers the modern web.
Right.
That was considered to be like their huge asset, and maybe there's a bit of that. Well, we have to use Steve's company's tool because, of course, he said it was the best thing that was out there.
I was lucky
I
enough
love
to
this.
do
He says, iMessage for Mac lives in an alternate dimension in which time has no ordered sequence. And then his last point, ping. It's clear Apple does not get the web, except for Safari,
I don't
which is
think they
great.
get social. I don't think they get social because they're very used to being, it's a command and control system and not a bottom-up kind of system. So I think that the social end of things, other than the personal, I'm going to contact my friends and family and so on and so forth, but the general social window is something that I don't think Apple necessarily has a way to handle.
Gibson says that Apple has a historic inability to recruit and keep talented web engineers. I mean, he worked there, so I don't know what the facts are.
I was lucky enough to do a couple interviews with Guy English we did Lauren Brichter, who did Letterpress 2 weeks ago, and we did Paul Haddad from Tapbots yesterday.
Oh, neat.
And when you hear them talking about how hard it is to write against Game Center APIs, or that iCloud will just stop syncing and start syncing on the same device, and I think Instacast just announced that they're going to stop using iCloud because it's unpredictable and opaque to them. And that's the kind of problem you have when Google's plowing ahead with great web services, and Amazon is, and Apple's still struggling to get core OS functionality working.
We were talking about supply problems with the iPhone 5, but according to Gene Munster at Piper Jaffray, nightly checks of supplies at 100 Apple stores showed significant improvements over the past 10 days. Maybe the lack of supply hump is over. That always happens, right? Mm-hmm. Just in time for Christmas.
This has been a pretty long one.
Yes.
As far as the lack of supply.
It was a hard phone to make, I think.
There was I think the 4, I think, or the 3.
The 4 was bad, too.
The 4 was really
bad. It took me
bad.
a month to get a 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And internationally, it wasn't even released for a month after the US version.
That's right. Yep. And according to All Things D, the costs of the iPhone may be a problem. John Pachowski says it's cost them so much. It's the first kind of low-margin device, or actually he's quoting an analyst from Pacific Crest, Andy Hargreaves, who says the gross profit per device has risen as high as it'll ever go. The cost of goods for the iPhone 5 is, he says, $370, which that seems a little high, which will trim their gross margin significantly. That's still a pretty good margin.
It's an incredible margin for this type of. I mean,
it's a lot better than Dell's getting. I'll tell you that.
We have moved from the gourmet ice cream to the regular Dryers ice cream. Yes.
Yeah.
And the funny part is they'll say Apple needs another $1 billion product to make up for this shortfall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very few companies are putting out products at the level Apple is, and yet Apple needs another $1 billion.
Not billion. Hargreaves says $100 billion product. $1 billion product's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
You need a $100 billion product.
Another one.
We're concerned because Apple seems to be focused on just making computers for the near-term future. They haven't come up with the next disruptive technology.
Well, I think if some are right, Ryan Block at Gadget says it's going to be wearable computers next. That's the next big product from Apple, wearable technology.
Glasses.
Google thinks it's glasses. Others are working on. Microsoft just patented glasses.
Yeah. It's hard to tell what Google really is up to with the glasses. They're developing technologies for self-driving cars, just to bring it back to hook back to something
full circle.
else.
Yeah,
and it's hard to figure out exactly where they're going to make their money from this as a standalone thing. You see it more as an incubator for a whole bunch of patents that they could then license out to other people rather than what they can do. Similarly, when you think of them doing Google Glasses, you wonder what they're going to do with this as a product, given that the best that they can do right now is that sometime at the end of next year, if you have $1,800, we'll sell you a developer kit, which we are telling you up front is not going to be very, very useful as a consumer product. So it's fun when you see a company that has that much money, that's making so much profit off of their core business, that they can feel like we're going to to start to build weird stuff because it seems interesting and it might make us money 10 years from now.
I don't think so. I mean, I think Google's. I mean, number one is last week. I think it was announced that Google gets more in advertising than the entire print industry combined.
Wow!
Right.
I mean, that's a so they're doing okay. But what makes that work is people having their connection to the cloud be ubiquitous. That's why you do a gigabit connection. That's why you do a car where you don't have to drive so that you can surf. That's why you have a glass on so that it's on with you all the time and you can be connected to that cloud.
And they've always said that the more you use the net, the more we make.
And when you look at how they benefit their advertisers based on, when you're looking at a Google ad, the ads that show up on your Google search are not just the people who paid the most, or the people who paid the most that had the most effective advertising, that the people clicked through the most often, so they had to perform as well. And that information combined, it becomes more and more powerful the more ubiquitous the internet is to you. And so I think that the glass, all of that stuff to me seems to fit very, very, very powerfully into a overall strategy to keep people on the web all the time.
And I can tell you, as somebody who was on a boat with very constrained internet, this stuff is crap without the internet. None of this stuff is worth anything. I played Plants vs. Zombies for 2 weeks because I couldn't do anything else.
Right.
Could we compare this, though, to the way that Apple and Amazon have both done similar types of products, where the iPhone with love and 5 years of perspective, we can admit was not a really great phone compared to what other phones were able to do at that time.
Agreed.
It was great because it was so new. It was great because it was going to be relevant for the next stage of computing. But there's so many basic features that it was missing. But it still worked as the thing they were selling it for. Same thing for when Amazon sold the first Kindle. It was not a great device. It cost $400. But for the idea of being a digital book reader, it was very functional and very practical. Google Glass, as they're pitching it right now, isn't really very good for very much. The self-driving car is good for PR. It's not the sort of thing that, socially, I'm talking about socially, as the thing that the human race is ready for right now. We are not ready to jump into a car that does not have a visible driver and then just trust it's going to work for itself. So that's where I think the difference is.
I think the car is further off, but I think that when you look at the glass, I mean, my wife saw the demos on the glass, and the whole thing was, for her, the idea that she could be watching her kids and click the side of touch the side of the glass and start recording, or touch the side of the glass and start sharing it with her mom, that was my wife. That wasn't me. Okay. That was my wife, who's not the most technical.
How about this? How about this product instead? Right now, today, you start working on a pair of glasses that's designed to do nothing but geotagged photos. It connects to it has a Bluetooth connection to your phone. It uses that for connection to the internet. It's not there for augmented reality. It's just so that anytime you're seeing something that you want to share with something, you touch a button. It simply takes a 2 megapixel image, pushes it down to your phone. An app on the phone pushes it out to the internet immediately. That's the sort of thing that could be built today. There are already glasses kind of like that are missing only the Bluetooth component, and they could ship that as a really great consumer level product, probably not for that much money, starting could have been done in time for the holiday season this year.
I think as a one-trick pony, I don't know if that's something people are going to wear all the time. I mean, I think that's the real question. I mean, I think
for all we know, that's all the Google glasses do. I mean, we've never seen it do anything more than that.
Well, they did Hangouts with them.
I mean, the Google Glass.
I mean, I mean, that's what they
were using it as a video camera.
So they're glasses that let you watch your girlfriend sleep.
Right.
Exactly. No. It lets
for Google
even creepier. The glasses let you watch what your girlfriend is watching while she's sleeping.
For Google, the glasses let them.
They sent video. They didn't even. You know better than I what they did, but it looked like they had the glasses. They were sending video from the glasses, and they had it, but it wasn't. The glasses weren't standalone. It was, as Andy said. I think they had a hardware connection, but they had a connection to a phone.
I think in the behind the scenes they were talking about that on the videos that was just because of the addressing of the micro.
Because they had to aim a
huge
microwave antenna.
I think Sergey was showing them using these big microwaves to do that. But I think that was was just to manage that problem.
I know you're kind of caught in a little bit of a difficult position here, but what more could Google Glasses do besides take pictures or maybe send video? What more would you like to see them do? You want to see augmented reality as you look around, you see what stores.
Well, I don't know what they're going to do with it. I know
are.
what when I think of the Google Glass, what I think of is not augmented reality. Like I don't want things floating around in front of me, but I want to be able to, if I'm looking at something, know how much it costs. I want to be able to never have to think of someone's name again because it does facial recognition and it goes and it just goes like floating under everybody is like Andy, Leo, and that's stuff. When you think of facial recognition, that's a total.
That's what Burnout says in the chat room. He says it's darknet from Demon. It is. It's exactly. You have a reputation score floating over your head.
You can have, the thing is that, and when I think of that, I think of being able to call someone, doing a video call where I'm calling them and showing them. And when I look at like for us, a lot of, our needs are to, like we want to train someone on how to use a camera that's halfway around the world. And if I have glass and they have glass, I can sit there and talk to them and go, okay, we're both looking at the same camera. I need you to plug in this button. I need you to do this here. And I see what they see and they see what I see. And, I think a lot of that stuff is, I think that it's going to be a very niche market when it begins. It's going to be, they're going to be expensive and they're going to be, but I think that, having that connected all the time to me is something that, and I thought it was just me. I thought it was geeky enough that it was just me getting excited about it. But when my wife saw it, the idea of being able to, connect quickly and have that information, right with you, I think is a pretty compelling model from what they've shown so far and from my imagination.
It really
For me,
it
though,
really,
it's going to solve Google's business isn't doing a lot of the stuff that we see on the front. Google's business is data collection and data aggregation that they use to channel their advertising, their marketing, everything else. And Google Glass, when you think about what problem it solves, the impression I get is that it's solving a Google problem. It's solving a way to collect even more data from everybody all the time. And for example, Alex is wearing this and he goes into the store and he buys a can of Coke. And, it's nice that Alex can compare shop, but Google finds out, oh, you're buying Coke.
Right.
Coke, how valuable is it to you to find out that people are buying Coke instead of Pepsi? Oh, and Lay's potato chips, would you like to know that he's buying this in conjunction? And suddenly they have a huge customer insight play, which is the next generation of AdSense and all these technologies.
But I think as a user, you're also going to be more likely to use it if I don't have to pull it out of my pocket and I don't have to think about it. I can just sit there, hit it, and just be able to, it becomes this thing that becomes...
That's what they want, Alex.
Oh, I know, but it means that all your... at some point in time, you have to realize that, I think we all have to... and people have talked about this for a long time, that your life is going to... If you've decided to buy into this, you're either going to use cash and sand off your fingerprints, or your life is going to be fairly transparent. And there's like two avenues you can go there. It's not, if we're using these devices, we're giving up most of our most of our privacy at this point.
I just want to charge more for mine.
Right. Yes, right. It should be an explicit deal, not some
absolutely.
Well, and I think a lot of times I decide when I'm going to have searches, and there is stuff that you have to pay attention to, like Spotify. I don't ever want people to know that I'm listening to Katy Perry, so I typically will go in private.
Baby, you're a firework. I like Katy Perry.
Did you see the documentary?
Good.
The documentary was awesome.
She's great. I love it.
So anyway. So
I watched that movie.
I watched it on a flight. It was great.
She
and
breaks
I made my
up
wife
with Russell Brand during
the
thing.
She's
really broken up. It's very
powerful. It was actually.
Did you?
Everybody on that plane says, so she's available now.
Oh God! Talk about guilty pleasures.
I know.
We're going to take a break now. Yeah. This show brought to you by our good friends at Squarespace, squarespace.com. Alex is a big Squarespace fan, I know. Anybody who's paid money to get a website up,
man,
knows really what a great deal Squarespace is. I don't want to tell you how much we've spent on web sites in the last 2 years.
Anytime someone says, well, I'm thinking about building a website, I'm just like, okay, somewhere down the road you might have engineers and everything else, but right now, just get Squarespace.
Yeah.
And you can ride that for a long time. You don't have to worry about installing. You don't have to know anything about a remote server. You don't have to understand how any of that stuff works. All you do is you just design it and it works.
And it's good. I still go to sites where they have including ours, where they have a desktop site and a mobile site. This is the old-fashioned way of doing it. You had two different sites, and it looks and says, "Oh, you're on an iPhone. I'm going to give you this site," and really, it breaks all the time. It's a terrible way of doing things. Squarespace is doing the more modern thing. In fact, this is part of the new Squarespace 6, which just came out. It's called Mobile Responsive Design, where the site is this one site. You design a site that you like how it looks. Squarespace handles the back end so that it can make that site fit any size, any resolution, any aspect ratio screen, and they all look good. It's things like that really that are hard to do. and that a lot of web design firms don't know how to do. But Squarespace does it all for you. It's part of the deal. And what a deal. Try Squarespace for 2 weeks, absolutely free. And if you decide you want to buy Squarespace, $8 a month for the basic plan when you buy an annual plan. And the annual plan, by the way, includes your own a custom domain registration. They hook that up so it can be, alexlindsay'scoolwebsite.com. And that's now going to go to your Squarespace site automatically. But I have to say the best deal is the $16 a month.
I don't even know how they make that work.
Plan. I don't know how they make it work either because it's unlimited pages, galleries, blogs, unlimited bandwidth. That's the one where most of the time, and again, I speak to my own experience, when you buy web hosting, they'll give you a certain amount of bandwidth. And then you want more, you have to pay for it a lot.
Well, and you want to think about this because if you're having a dream that your website's going to sometime be, really popular, you have to think about what happens if you get that big PR hit that's going to send all those people there. You don't want that to get shut down because, in my opinion, if you're not putting a website up, if you're putting a website up for vanity, I mean, you should just use Facebook or G Plus or something like that.
If you want to do business, or it's a gallery, you're a photographer, you want to show off your stuff, and suddenly somebody bookmarks you on Google Plus or Facebook, and you get millions of hits. Facebook, Squarespace not only does not slow down, not only is it up and running, but they don't ever meter the bandwidth.
Well, and I used to worry about it because we'd have our sites are all on.
You can get a
Squarespace,
big bill if you don't.
And I would go, so are you going to be able to handle this? Because we're going to do this big PR or whatever. Like, oh, no worry, we're putting a big movie up there. Or, oh, no problem. And
it's amazing. So here's the deal: go to squarespace.com, try it, absolutely free. You don't need a credit card or anything. All you need is just say I want to try it. For 2 weeks, you can import all your existing stuff. They support TypePad, Blogger, WordPress. And when I say all your existing stuff, not just the content, not just the images, all the links, all the SEO is preserved, even all the comments get imported in and can be exported out at any time. Try the design. They have all these great designer templates, lots of new features. If you decide after, 14 days, this is pretty good, take advantage of our special offer. MacBreak 11 is the offer code. You'll get 10% off your first purchase. That's why the annual purchase makes a lot of sense. MacBreak, followed by the number 11, because it's the 11th month. We change it every. So if you hear this ad in a couple of days, it's December. MacBreak 12 would be the offer code. I don't know how that works. Do they honor MacBreak 11 once we get to December?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the signal then is to them is I heard this on a November MacBreak.
Right.
I got it.
Right.
Okay.
But also, it may change. December might have a different offer.
So we don't know. So MacBreak 11, use that one.
Yeah.
Chad Johnson, he's smart. He knows.
He's the man with the plan.
I got to listen to Chad more often. Anyway, you're going to love it. Squarespace.com. It is the secret behind exceptional websites, especially if you're a photographer, an artist, somebody who really wants a great-looking portfolio. You want it to look as good as your stuff does. This is a great place to start. Squarespace.com. And we thank them so much for their support of all of our shows. Let's see. We were talking about the iPhone profits per device. Interesting. Somebody in the chat room quoted once again Horace Dediu. He's an amazing guy, the Asympco blogger, talking about the fact that Apple actually may be kind of at the peak of what it can do based on penetration into markets. He says there are roughly 800 plus cell phone carriers in the world. Apple says it's now at 275. But if you count the number of subscribers, Apple has, I can't remember what it was, something like 33% penetration with subscribers. He says the problem is going to be that you've already doubled production. You cannot continue to, because you need to do a new phone every year. The carriers demand it, and you need to be able to produce them and get them into all those markets within a year in the giant numbers. It may be saturated, basically. They may have hit the edge of the line in terms of growth on the iPhone.
Well, I guess, but one of the big news items that came out last week, I don't know if it's on our list or not, is the fact that Apple is still working on, China Mobile, which would be
right,
which is, but that would
the problem.
You mean as far as just producing the?
Yeah.
Well, I think that Foxconn just needs to get bigger.
It comes a point where you're employing every person in China,
and they'll,
and you can't employ anymore. I look at Horace is really good. His blog is.
I think that these pinches. When we say that they can't produce enough of them, you have a pinch for the first month, and then after that, maybe you'll have a pinch for 2 months. Maybe people have to wait for 3 months before they get their new iPhone 6 or whatever. But I don't think that necessarily is means that they can't address the market. I think that they can't address it on day one. I don't know if that's totally.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. He
they
says
stage their rollouts again like they used to.
Yeah. It's a really interesting article. He says they're having a conference in January. There will be an opportunity to debate this live with an august audience.
There you go.
Yeah, so maybe you should go and you can say, well, wait a minute.
Where are they doing it?
I don't know. He's from Finland, so
I think he does it in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'd like to go because more and more I've been reading his blog as a really good source of and he's numbers driven.
Mm-hmm.
So always very interesting analysis there. Artists are, when I left, iTunes 11
was almost
and now it's December, right? According to a post on the Mac Rumors forums, Apple is asking record labels to get their pictures and galleries to iTunes for use in iTunes 11's new layout in the next few days.
Chop, chop.
November is almost over.
Supposed to ship by the end of November. What day is today? November 27th?
It's getting pretty close.
End of November? 4 days?
Yeah, 4 days to ship or delay.
Ship or delay. That's great artists ship, in the words of Steve Jobs.
But it's interesting because, I mean, they postponed iTunes 11. It wasn't a case where they had a deadline, they decided it was an internal deadline, and they were going to ship, and maybe it would be a really bad experience. They'd have not the Maps problem all over again, but another case of, Apple's rushing out, they're not producing great software, they're fraying around the seams. So this time they chose to actually say, we're delaying this for a month, and we want to make a better product.
They'd have to do it by Friday.
Chop, chop.
I don't know if I care.
Yeah.
Do you care?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they do something significant. No, not really.
What's more embarrassing, being like 6 weeks late on delivery or releasing the thing that makes you forget all about how bad Maps is?
It's a pretty drastic update too. I kind of wonder if it's kind of a weird time to release it right before Christmas when people are going to be plugging in their new iPads and iPod Touches.
Yeah, what if it breaks?
All of a sudden,
yeah.
Well, remember there was that great
January.
There was that great letter from Steve Jobs after Mobile Me when he said that, Apple should learn from this mistake and we should have rolled out one thing at a time, taken it, done mail and then done calendars and then done contacts and not rushed. And we shouldn't have done the iPhone 3G at the same time as the App Store, at the same time as iOS. And we should learn from these mistakes. And it doesn't look like they're always learning from it, but it does look like with iTunes 11, they took a page from that and said, let's take our time and get it right and not have another embarrassing incident.
This is a new Apple, though. This is the Apple that supposedly can multitask, right? That's a big change under Tim Cook. The Apple that can do more than one thing
over
at a
time. He's only been here for a little while.
It's a year.
Still, the iMacs haven't shipped yet. I mean, they're coming, but they weren't released
November
at the
30th.
same time.
I remember very well when Apple said, hey, we're going to push off OS 10 update because we've got to do this iOS update, and we can't do both. Remember that? That was kind of a shocker.
Engineers.
If you're saying something important, hold on, because my headphones have... I can't hear a thing.
Well, that's the difficulty of being a celebrity company like Apple, where if those of us who, like, if we're like a day late on a report, or if, let's say, that we were to trip and fall outside of a liquor store after buying simply like a nice bottle of wine because we're seeing our parents tomorrow. If you're a celebrity, that's all over every paper and everybody's saying all kinds of nasty things about you. If you're just a regular person, people say, okay, well, he tripped and fell. I bet he was. It was the day before Thanksgiving. He was probably buying a lovely bottle of wine for his parents. Apple, any other company says that we plan to release this on this time frame. Okay, we're 2 months late. Any other company would be, okay, who cares? With Apple, for some reason, people hold them to a higher standard, either because they're used to such dazzling performance from them in the past, or because they just like to report something that's kind of nasty about Apple.
I think there's some of that. A little Schadenfreude. Beatmaster says they're just waiting for the show to end.
Right.
just to... we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, well, let's be spiteful. I wonder. I guess I bet that Microsoft could build a parking garage with as many cars as they originally planned. Why are they suddenly cutting back?
The Longhorn parking garage.
Are they anticipating? Are they anticipating mass layoffs? Is that the reason why? Coming up next on TMZ.com.
I like it. T-Mobile says, speaking of,
I'm seriously waiting for someone to start spreading.
oh
that
yeah, that's a
rumor.
good one. I like that. Yeah.
No. It's a stupid rumor. That's a good. Actually, maybe we should start. That's a really good use for rumors. We should start putting out really awesomely stupid ones, so that anybody who passes it on, that's sort of like a signal, like a shibboleth, that will indicate that, okay, this person is an idiot. I can unfollow them immediately and not miss anything they're going to say.
That would leave you with a very short list of people on Twitter to follow.
So much free time.
Sheldon Cooper experiment, Andy. It's going to lead in Bazinga.
Bazinga!
I'm very flattered to be suggested that an idea of mine could have been come up with by Dr. Sheldon Cooper.
A T-Mobile executive says the iPhone isn't worth the sacrifice that you have to make. Jim Ailing, COO of T-Mobile USA. Well, he's kind of making lemons out of lemonade. We're glad we don't have the iPhone. We recognize...
Says the fourth place network.
Yeah. The fourth place network says not having the iPhone has been detrimental. He said, we recognize this has been a point of churn for us. It's a point of churn.
The fourth place network that will help you convert your iPod, your iPhone from another carrier to their system. So.
Right.
We're desperately rolling out non-AWS 3G as fast as they can.
We are bleeding to death, but we're doing it on our own terms.
We're keeping it real.
Alive.
Okay.
Will Ferrell's character in Austin Powers.
Barclays Bank bought 8,500 iPads. That's the biggest purchase of iPads in the financial sector ever. One of the largest rollouts. Barclays said that staff had demanded the reassuringly expensive pad over other shiny devices. I don't know if that's quite right. The device will be used to assist branch colleagues to interact with customers, improving the customer experience. Well, you see, I've got an iPad, so that's better. I don't know how that's going to improve.
A lot of that. I mean, you see this. You're seeing this in more stores where
I hope the bank's not going to use pay with Square.
No. I think it's typically for a lot of these at retail outlets that, I mean, I've seen a couple of these actually in the UK more than in the United States, where someone will walk up and they have an iPhone and you're asking a question, or an iPad, and they're asking a question, and they can be pulling up like data that would be very difficult for them to carry around with a laptop,
right?
You know, and so they just have to have one that allows them to pull up information quicker. I think that's all they're gonna use.
Apple has announced breaking news that that the iMac will be available Friday, the new skinny one, that in 21.5-inch version.
They should do the whole thing. Wafer thin.
Wafer thin. The wafer thin 27-inch model still on for December. So starting Friday, we can order that 21-inch skinny Mac.
Friction stir welded skinny Mac.
Friction stir welded. I love just being able to throw that phrase around. Oh yeah, it was friction stir welded.
I don't hear any word in that description that indicates that any of the screwdrivers in my toolbox will be of any use whatsoever.
Guarantee you not. I
You
can
have a
promise
friction
you.
stir screwdriver, Andy?
In fact, I think if anything goes wrong with it, they just throw it away and give you another.
I don't think you could fix that with a sonic screwdriver.
Let's de-stir it. Let's de-stir it.
Like the 21-inch doesn't even open, right? Or you can't put a new hard drive. Or
I'm
RAM,
sure not.
Right?
However,
you can with the bigger one.
you do get a 5mm edge-to-edge glass LED backlit display with IPS technology, FaceTime HD camera, dual mics, 4 USB 3 ports, 2 Thunderbolt ports, Mountain Lion Bluetooth 4, and more.
And more.
Or less.
Styrofoam.
Yes. Actually, John came in, my studio manager said, really, you should get one for your office, because the Mac kind of gets in the way. It's so thick.
Is it like an inch?
Think of all these.
See, Andy, you asked about thinness. Here it is. There.
It's so thick.
Leo's old iMac is so thick.
For Americans, how does all of our devices keep on getting thin and we keep on getting thicker?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? They always say, and of course, it's thinner.
Desktop computers are the only consumer product that the corn industry has not figured out a way to get high fructose corn syrup into.
There you go.
You're working on it. There's a new technique.
Yep. Apple has added the Note 2 and a variety of other Samsung devices to the patent lawsuit. Samsung says the iPhone couldn't exist without Samsung patents. So there.
a big slap fight.
Why don't they just make love to each other and end this dance?
Well, that's what they did with HTC, and Apple's redacting the amount of money. Nobody wants to know what HTC is paying per phone.
It's apparently a trivial amount.
Well, that could be $1, a nickel, $8. What is trivial?
HTC is not making a lot of profit, and they said it's not going to damage their profits. So
That's trivial.
doesn't sound like a lot.
If you're not making any money.
Yeah.
Although they did have to pay $276 million in fines or whatever. What do you call that? Damages. Damages is the word. That's less than $1 billion. There's a good thing on Ars Technica. Before the new iTunes comes out, iTunes Through the Ages. You can go back if you want to look at the good old days. iTunes 1.0, 2.0. By the way, the iTunes predates the iPod.
Yep.
So 2.0 supported the iPod.
That's arguably what made the iPod work.
Right.
Just that you could suddenly throw everything on there.
Absolutely. iTunes 3, Smart Playlists. iTunes 4, the Music Store. Still couldn't buy AC/DC then. iTunes.
Do they have Sound Jam in there before?
Sound Jam. They should, because that's what it was based on, right?
Yeah.
Apple bought Sound Jam and used that as the basis for iTunes back in, when was that? January 2001. And it put everybody else out of business. Besides Sound Jam, there was another product I used to use, but I can't remember the name of it. It's long gone. iTunes 5 supported the Nano and podcasts. That was when our worlds changed in 2005.
Wow, I can't believe it was that long ago.
2005, yeah. iTunes 6, music videos. iTunes 7, movies. That was in September 2006. iTunes 8 added Genius. Do you use the Genius app?
Never.
Genius ain't so smart, really.
Nice. I like things to be mixed a very specific way.
And you have different people in your family buying stuff that
I don't like Genius.
completely skews the results.
Oh, yeah, because my son buys a lot of hip-hop, and then, the Genius is confused by that.
They keep getting all this Katy Perry.
He's probably saying the same thing. My dad keeps buying Katy Perry stuff, and it's really screwing up my Genius recommendations. iTunes 9 added sharing. That's a nice feature. It's fun to go back through this and see what these were the big things that Apple was saying. Hey, now we have sharing. Home sharing. iTunes 10. Ping. And now iTunes 11 is completely redesigned. And we shall see it soon. Minus ping.
Will there be a friendly Windows version with all those new fancy APIs wrapped up and ported over to Windows land?
God, I don't know. I feel bad because people really have a lot of trouble with iTunes on Windows, and I'm sure it's the largest number of people using iTunes, right? As Windows users, much more than Mac.
It's so difficult. I have to say, my dad has it on his Windows, and every time I go home, I have to fix something.
And it turns people off of Apple too. People who have never had any experience with Apple, that's what they know. And I mean, we went to a party a few weeks ago, and the first thing the guy found out when I write something about Apple, he's like, "Oh God, iTunes on Windows."
Exactly. That's they got to work on that. They got to fix that.
I mean, of course, if you just buy a Mac, then it fixes itself.
Yeah, right.
I wish I could say that on the radio show. When somebody calls and they say, "Yeah, I'm using iTunes on Windows," and my heart falls. I don't say anything, but I wish I could just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
I talked to someone on a plane that said, I had an iPhone. I love my iPhone, but I hated iTunes for Windows. So the next computer I bought was just a Mac, and then it works fine. It's just kind of like,
fix.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll acknowledge.
Do you guys use iTunes anymore? Because since iCloud, I don't think, unless I've had to do a complete restore, I've never gone anywhere near iTunes.
No, I try not to.
I don't use it very often.
I use it every day. I'm exactly the opposite. If I could get iCloud to work predictably, then I would switch to it. But as it is, it's the desktop is still the best way to create playlists, the best way to manage content on a device. I keep trying to like iCloud syncing, but it just will not behave.
I guess 90% of my listening is all through Spotify, so I think that's the other issue, is that I don't really listen to the songs there anymore.
And a final story, according to Patently Apple, the Lightning trademark came from Harley Davidson.
Wow.
Yeah, and Apple bought it from them. We found that out in the EU filings for Lightning.
Try that for how do you patent a lightning bolt? Seems like there's a lot of prior art. That's all I'm saying.
Well, Apple decided not to fight it.
I think it was a trademark. I think they had the rights to use the
it's a
word
trademark.
Lightning in certain areas that crossed over with how Apple wanted to market the Lightning connector, and they agreed to license those rights for specific use with the Lightning connector.
Amusement and game apparatus intended for use with an external display screen or monitor.
How does Harley end up with that? That's the other part of it. Is like, what were they having a game apparatus on their bike?
I think it has to do with the assistive devices that their customers use after they crash their motorcycles and lose the use of their limbs.
And on that note, let's take a break and come back. We got our picks of the week coming up in just a bit. Andy Ihnatko is here from the Chicago Sun-Times. John Moltz from a very nice website.
A pretty nice website.
It's pretty nice.
Maybe it should be pretty nice.
You know, I'm not going to say anything. Very nice website.com. Also, iRitchie from ReneMoore.com. No, Rene Ritchie from iMore.com. You should change your name legally to iRitchie, though.
I was thinking of Irene, but people kept saying Irene, and it just didn't work out.
Irene, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, the next time we have somebody named Irene on, I'll call her Irene. We'll see what happens.
But I did find out, Leo, that it took me years to realize that I have a Stan Lee name. It was just a realization I had about a week ago.
Oh, it's totally a Stan Lee name.
Yeah.
Do you work at the Daily... Oh, no, that would be the wrong newspaper. I would say the Daily Planet, but that's
The Daily
DC.
Bugle.
The Daily Bugle.
I would love to.
RR. Rene Ritchie. Would you be a villain or a hero?
Do villains get the double letter names? I think it's usually like the Peter Parker, Bruce Banner,
the hero.
Murdoch
also,
types.
Yeah.
Pepper Potts. You know, even the sidekicks get a little bit of names.
Susan Storm.
What about Leo Laporte? See, that's not... No.
Yeah. No, you're there too, Leo. We both have Stan Lee names.
You just have to get really good at...
And Alex Lindsay from the Pixel Core, a show brought to you today by our friends at Audible, audible.com. I had a 14-hour plane flight, 2 ways, because you have to go home after you go. And if it weren't for Audible, I don't know how I would have survived that. But I listened to a lot of books, the new Pete Townsend biography, Who I Am. I'm loving and really enjoy Mark Owen's No Easy Day, SEAL Team 6 story. Wow, is that great. Wow. This is the same team that got Osama bin Laden, is the team that rescued the captain from the Alabama Maersk. Captain was captured by Somali pirates.
Well,
it's the same guys. They're good. They're like super cool.
They've got some skill.
My son said, now that's an alpha male. Yes. Smart, physically vital. Really a fun book. You just can't put it down. That's called No Easy Day. See, the reason I mention this is because I'm going to give you a free book. And now the question is, well, what free book? Well, if you go to audible.com/MacBreak, you can sign up for the gold account. That's a book a month subscription. Subscription is the way to go, by the way, the most affordable way to listen to Audible. And your first month's free. Your first credit is free. And you can cancel it anytime, pay nothing, but keep that book forever. Audible is like the world's best bookstore of audiobooks. Audible.com to browse around. 100,000 plus titles in every category. Everything from, history. If you saw the new Spielberg movie, Lincoln, it's based on a great Dorothy Kearns Goodwin book called Team of Rivals, which I listened to on Audible, and I loved it. It's the story of how Lincoln put together, his cabinet from people who were political opponents, and made it really work. And this is what the movie is based on. Salmon Chase, William Seward, Edward Bates. Really interesting. If you like history, it's fantastic. But also if you like spy novels, thrillers. What are you listening to these days, Andy? What do you like?
I'm in the middle of a really fun book by Kevin Pollak called How I Slept My Way to the Middle, Secrets and Stories from Stage, Screen, and Interwebs. This was a pick based on 2 different things that I have become really obsessive with watching The Usual Suspects over and over and over again.
Movie. Yeah,
it's just it kills me every single time. And also I'm a huge fan of his podcast and video podcast, Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. He is such a great interviewer, such a great wit, and so he couldn't help but find. But as he started plugging this book, which just came out a couple weeks ago, that okay, I'm willing to give him some of my money for his partial payment for some of the entertainment he's given me in the past, and it's just full of it's not like Stephen Tobolowsky's book where he's telling stories about where the Tobolowsky might tell you some stories about filming Groundhog Day, but it's mostly about the experiences and the life lessons he had around it. And that's wonderful, even though you're sort of like, but could you tell us some funny stories about Bill Murray from the set? This is sort of the opposite of that. He doesn't really get into life lessons or big stories. It really is just a guy who's had a killer career as a stand-up comedian, was one of Johnny Carson's favorite guests, and one of those rare, I can't think of another actor who you could say that he is a top drawer A-list comedian, but also a top drawer A-list actor. Where if you look at him in A Few Good Men, if you look at him in The Usual Suspects, you would not say, "Oh, well, that's the guy who was a stand-up comic and they managed to cast him in a few roles that are similar to his onstage performance." No, he is a absolutely wonderful actor. So it's just full of stories like that. Right now, the story alone about how he came, his tactics for getting on the Tonight Show, just some of the gutsiest thinking, some of the gutsiest maneuvers I've ever heard. And it's great because you're listening to this in his own voice. So you would think that this is the voice of a man who is looking back on his decision-making process at age 27 from the perspective of someone who's in his 50s and saying, "You idiot. Why are you don't say, yes, Mr. Talent Coordinator, I would love to be on the Tonight Show right now. Don't." It's a fantastic story which ends in huge success. Right now, just this morning, I got to the part where he starts talking about being cast in The Usual Suspects. And so this is just nothing but those, if you're familiar with his work or if you just like showbiz stories, it's just nothing but great story after great story after great story after great story.
With that sarcastic edge.
Yeah, I'll play a little bit of his voice because you'll recognize his voice. And does he do any of his impressions in there? Because he does the best.
Oh yes, well, yeah. It's wonderful because I got to the end of the section where he's talking about filming A Few Good Men. So oftentimes when you listen to an audiobook, like someone will say, "And then I met Jack Nicholson, and so right. Jack said to me, 'Well, Dave, I think that your car is..." No, he will do a absolutely dead-on, perfect impression of the guy.
His impressions are amazing. He's a guy who does the great Shatner. He also does an amazing Christopher Walken, kind of the definitive Christopher Walken. Are we not getting audio? Maybe not. Nope. Oh,
I live in Brooklyn. How long did it take you to...
A revolving stage that's conducive to almost nothing. Still, it was a big part of my young life, as witnessed by the infamous Dave Clark 5 autograph session.
Is he talking about the Circle Star Theater in San Carlos? I bet he is.
Indeed he is.
Yeah. He grew up here. Remember that's revolving stage very well. I love Kevin. I've known him for quite a few years, not super well, but well enough to talk to. And last time I saw him, he told me some good stories about The Usual Suspects. It's a great. He is just he is on that list where the next time he comes into New England, I want to buy a ticket to a show, even if I have a family wedding to go to that night. Yeah. Because I will try to worm out of that wedding up until the time I absolutely cannot worm out of it. And then even then I'll be pleased that, okay, at least I bought a ticket. At least I, in some direct or indirect fashion, caused him to get some money into his pocket because he's just fantastic. We got to get him, since this book came out, let's get him on Triangulation. I'd love to get him on. Anyway.
Oh, and last comment. He is upset about the Photoshop job they did on his face on the cover of the book. He did.
That's the worst cover I have ever seen.
He mentioned that in the chat show that he approved the cover, and then they made the changes to make him look like substantially not like a.
Who is that?
I have no idea.
That is just a bizarre.
He looks like his parents emigrated from a different part of the planet that if it was in fact this planet, then they actually emigrated from.
How I Slept My Way to the Middle. Kevin Pollak. That's just one of 100,000 titles. That one could be yours for free. All you have to do is go to audible.com/MacBreak. And even if you're already an Audible member, just a reminder, the Sanderson book is still available for free to anybody, member or not. Just go to audible.com/Sanderson. It's the great novella Legion. I really love it. Oliver Wyman narrates it. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. And it's free to everybody. So just, if you just want to say, I want to hear what it's like, audible.com/Sanderson, SANDERSON. Time for our picks of the week. Let me start with you, Alex Lindsay, because you're sitting right here.
So I finally bought a Nest.
Oh, I love it. Did you get the Nest 1 or the new Nest?
I got the new one. The Nest 1, I was like, but I heard that there were rumors it was going to come out, and so I finally decided I was going to give it a shot. And so I went and bought the new Nest, and
it's a thermostat.
To tell you how much, so I have a back house that is my office, and then the front house, which is the family. And to tell you how much I love my family, I put it in the front house.
Oh, you do?
The back house.
This is Tony Fadell designed this, the guy who did the iPod.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that I took them up on their challenge, which was that I am not going to hire someone to put this in. I am going to. I was going to install it myself. So I took that horrible Honeywell that I hate. Like I hate the thermostat in our house.
Yeah, that's what I replaced.
This is why I did this, was because I hate it so much. You know, it's constantly turning the thing off, on and off at the wrong time. So anyway, so I took it off, and you pull the front cover off. You don't even realize how these things work. You pull the front cover off, and the little piece comes with this little pieces of tape, little stickers that you put on.
Isn't that great? On the wires before you take off.
So it says before you do that, you read the instructions. Label the wires.
Yeah.
Make sure you know what you're connecting. Yeah. So I labeled all the wires, and then I unscrewed the thing, and then I put the Nest on, and then I screwed it. You know, you didn't screw it, and just popped the little wires into their little, and then I popped the top on, and I ran an update. You know, I connected it to my Wi-Fi, and it's connected. Number one, any thermostat that's connected to your Wi-Fi is instantly cooler than the other thermostats. but the so I connected to the Wi-Fi, and I've set it up with my phone so I can see, you know, and connected.
They have apps for every phone.
So you have the entire process from the time that I opened the box to the time that I had it running was about 18 minutes by myself. And it was 18 minutes because I actually timed it because I wanted to see. So I was a little in pressure. I was focused. My wife tried to talk to me. I'm like, I'm working here. I gotta get this thing done.
Don't bother me.
So anyway, so it was focused 18 minutes. But I literally did the updates. I had it running. And so then once you have it, you know what's great is you walk near it and it turns on. Like you walk by it and it goes,
senses your presence.
Yeah, I'm here, you know, and so you and you can tell it that you know that you're going away, that you're here. You can do that on your iPhone from a distance. So when you're on your way back, you can say, "Hey, I'm coming back. Just go ahead and turn that heater on." And anyway, and then it's also starting to pay attention to when the phone is. It's still learning, but eventually you'll be able to do that. But it's so easy, and it literally that. I know this sounds crazy, but the house is actually at a better temperature now that it's actually running. It
saves you energy, and it does some things. There's some smart things it does. For instance, it knows your AC. It will work with AC and heating. I don't have an AC.
You tell it how you want to. Yeah, but you also tell it like what kind of heater you're using, and it figures out.
It will keep the fan going after the compressor's off, so that it continues to. I mean, there's just a lot of smart things about it, and I love it. In fact, let me log into my Nest. Hold on, I gotta log in.
And I have to say that I'm now thinking that this is the Trojan horse for home automation, because I feel
think there's
like
got to be more.
I feel like if they, it feels like the next thing that they're going to do is, because I just know that I've been really looking for home automation software.
Right.
Like, what am I going to run the whole house with? All the locks, all the, and part of why I'm holding out now is because the experience with Nest is so good that when I look at all the other options, I kind of feel like I just want to see if these guys, I want to wait another couple months to CES and see if these guys like roll out what I think they should roll out next with is all the other automation stuff. The locks for my doors,
I'd be curious if they do that.
Light controls,
I would
everything
buy it.
else.
I mean, it's expensive. It's $250. It's not cheap. I don't know what the Honeywell costs. Probably
it's
less.
Like $60.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more expensive.
But you can go online. You can use a smartphone app, and it knows what the weather is locally. So, for instance, it knows it's 61 degrees right now, and it adjusts accordingly. But right now, it's turned off. You see. But if I say, "Hey, I'm going to come home," I can turn up the heat. This is turning on the heat in my house right now, on the web.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? And there's more you can do. You can say, "I'm away." Let me turn it down there because I'm not there. It's really sweet. It's a gadget.
It's totally
I don't know if you really need it, but I like it.
I thought the first one, I have to admit, the first one I was a little afraid of how I was going to install it. And the second one is so
and easy. The install, I'll second you on this. Most thermostats are low power, so you can't shock yourself. But do check if you have a 110 or 220 volt thermostat. You might want to check and get an electrician to do it.
That was the scariest part of the whole thing is that it does tell you to turn off the power, which I have to go outside for. And opening up my power, you can tell that was the time I had to do it. I'm traveling so much that when I'm home and it was raining and I was probably not one of the smarter things I've ever
It's
done.
low power. It's actually
yeah, but I was changing. I was turning off the circuit breaker outside.
Out in the rain.
It wasn't raining very hard.
What could possibly go wrong?
I'm still here.
Nest.com. And I saw that they were selling in Black Friday specials at one of the home improvement places, the old Nest. So look carefully, because I think you want the new Nest.
You want the new one. I think the new one was a big jump forward, so I would definitely get the new one.
Yeah. Rene, Ritchie, a pick of the week from you.
I have Pat and Quill makes these handmade cases for iPhones and iPads.
Ooh, that's
and
pretty.
They have just put out their new iPhone 5 version of the little pocket book, complete with a little wallet. I got it upside down.
It's wood.
Little wallet. Yeah, it's made out of birch and Italian leather, I believe. And they've got the iPad mini ones now, Leo. So if that smart cover is driving you out of your mind.
Porn novel called Birch and Italian Leather. I may be wrong, but it sounds.
But there's some
vaguely
50 Shades of Rich Italian leather.
Yeah.
They're a little hipster, but there's something nice about swathing the latest in Apple aluminum and glass with something that's old world and hand bound and easy to tuck under your arm and take out without a bag or something.
There was the bamboo one that was called, what was that called?
Yeah, they're both so the little pocketbook is the one for the iPhone 5.
Right. But there's 3 companies that make things like this. I mean, I really like these hard cases. I have the Exhibit case, but the first one, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway.
There's Dodo cases.
Dodo. That's the one. Yeah. How does this compare to the Dodo?
The basic ones are almost identical. What I like about Pat and Quill is they have other models. For example, I think it's called the Contega, where you can actually fold it up the way you do a smart cover, and it has a little pocket for paper, and it's got a little bit of extra functionality that I find really nice.
I'm gonna get something for my Mini because I got the Apple smart cover, as we were talking about before the show began. It's just not. It's dumb.
It's not smart.
Yeah, but these are pretty. These Minis, and it's handcrafted in Minneapolis.
Yes.
So that's good. Oh, these are pretty. So which one do you have?
The brand new one for the iPad Mini. I think it's the Graduate for the Mini. But
there's a Graduate Artist, the Graduate Edition, and the Octavo.
Yeah, the more expensive ones have more features, like the ability to fold them up or extra pockets or stuff. So it just depends on what you need.
Padandquill.com.
Yes.
Mr. Moltz, a pick from you, sir.
My pick is Boom for the Mac.
Boom!
I switched from a MacBook Pro to a MacBook Air back in June, I believe. And my son and I have this tradition when my wife goes out that we sit around the table and we eat hot dogs and watch like a movie or a TV show on my laptop. And with the Air, it's hard to hear because the speakers are just quieter than on the MacBook Pro. Well, Boom changes that and somehow manages, and I don't know if this is good for the device or not, but I found it to be very useful because it will actually increase the sound output of your MacBook's speakers, or any speakers actually, any Mac speakers. And it allows me to increase it to the point where you can actually hear what's going on while we're sitting there chewing on hot dogs and watching a show.
How do it work?
It's only $7 from the Mac App Store.
It includes an equalizer too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Boom. Bada bing, bada boom.
And it was something that Steve Jobs always said.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. Boom.
Boom. Andy Ihnatko, your pick of the week.
This is going to be one that's, oh goodness, I'm pixelated again. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, that's just a band. It's nothing you can do about it.
There you go.
It's just a band.
It's Chinatown.
It's Chinatown.
It's
Jake.
It's Bandwidth Town. This is going to be a really cool pick for people of a certain age. This is a Charlie Brown Christmas as an iPad app.
Oh, wow.
And you start off with, see if we get the audio will come through. This is just like the background music to it. And as you can see, there's like a little record player with a 45 RPM record.
That's funny.
There's one instance in which I'm willing to support skeuomorphism because that's perfect.
Oh yeah, that's cute.
And
Charlie Brown Christmas time was here.
What a great idea.
Yeah. And it's being read by the same actor who voiced Charlie Brown as a kid for the actual special.
Oh, wow.
And you can read along, but after the end of it, you can like touch things, and there's animation, and it's like this. Like if you touch on the snowflakes, they turn into like big snowflakes. It's a read along. There's also a really good side effect that actually makes it a good business expense, because I bought this morning after remembering that someone really cool had recommended it to me last week. And so I just have this open while I'm like reading and working. And as you can hear, like the Vince Guaraldi soundtrack is just on a loop. And it's just such a pleasant thing to have in the background as you're working.
My favorite Christmas music.
It just puts you in this warm, happy. You're 5 years old. You're lying on your belly on the carpet in your parents' living room, watching the Charlie Brown special, wondering if wonder what a little Debbie snack cake would taste like if you would have one. It's anyway $2.99. It was probably one of the happiest $2.99s I've ever spent. And also, I mean, it's not just there's more to it than this. Every single page has a different kind of game or pleasantry put
It's the original soundtrack in the background, though, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I'm sorry, you reminded me as you were going through. There are places where you can play the piano during the party scene. Anyway,
you can learn how to play the Linus and Lucy theme for your very own self.
Yes.
Da 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 da.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a very pleasure-inducing $2.99.
I think Sarah picked. It's the Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown is also an app, right? Yeah.
Oh. Didn't know that.
Yeah, so I guess they're going to do the whole thing. That's great. Boy, that Charles Schultz estate still doing okay.
Yeah, he's still making a little money here and there.
It was actually his 90th birthday, or 90th anniversary of his birth just this week.
You know, he was a local. He was up the road a piece in Santa Rosa, and there's the Charlie Brown Museum is there, and the skating rink there is the Charles Schultz.
I didn't know there was a Charlie Brown Museum.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Take the kids.
No, I haven't. I visited. I decided to go to visit the place. I did go and visit while it was still the studio, and even that was just cool enough to see. Oh, there's
where it was,
and what a pilgrimage, because Charles Schultz is still like the inspiration for anybody who ever even considered complaining about having to write a column sometime in the next 48 hours. This guy who lived until he was 78 years old wrote, drew, inked, and published a comic strip every day of his life and didn't miss a single deadline. Don't complain.
Every day. You know, I'm glad there's stuff like this, which will, I hope, keep it alive for another generation. Because a lot of times what happens to comic strips is they just don't, they're once they're done, they're done. No, and there are a few like, Bloom County,
Calvin and Hobbes.
Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes, who really should live forever, I think. They're just great. Doonesbury, just great stuff. And credit to Vince Guaraldi, who's the piano guy and all of that stuff. His music is fantastic. Good pick. Thank you, Andy. Thank you all for being here. What a great show this was. Andy Ihnatko's with the Chicago Sun-Times. Joins us every week with his balalaika. That's just a ukulele. But
thank you for making my fluke ukulele tax deductible. perhaps the fluke ukulele company would like to get in touch with me about perhaps having some other of their fine instruments, like their new banjo.
Can he play
in this position?
The balalaika. Oh, can he play? Like all Russians.
Little, just like famous guitarists have their little like Mr. Ihnatko's ukuleles are provided by the Fluke Ukulele Company.
I think we could do that.
Mr. Ihnatko plays Fluke ukuleles exclusively.
We will add just for that. We'll add roll closing credits. We haven't had closing credits on the show until now, but from now on. just
by Haga.
One line. Yeah, one line.
Leo's Wardrobe by Botany 500.
Exactly. Guests of MacBreak Weekly stay in Leo's backyard. We also thank John Moltz from a very nice website, which happens to be called verynicewebsite.com or .net. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're great. I miss you.
Lovely to be here again.
Yeah, we got to. I don't know where we dug your name up, but thank you, Chad, for finding John and bringing him back. It's been a long time, and I always love having you on. So we'll get you on more. Rene Ritchie from imore.com. Great to have you as always.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you. Welcome back again.
And thank you. I'm glad to be back. I actually was. I missed it by the end of the trip. I was doing shows in my underwear in the cabin. I introduced you all and talked to the TV. It was great. Alex Lindsay also here from pixelcore.com. We do MacBreak Weekly, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Tuesday, right before the Apple announcement each week.
Yes.
And you can join us live if you would. It's great because with the chat room, and as you can see, we refer to the chat room because it's a great resource for us. That's the funny thing, to go 3 weeks without having people tell me stuff. I would they would say, what would you like for breakfast? And I said, chat room. And then there's no chat room. I couldn't. It was very difficult.
You need Google Glasses for that.
That's what I would use Google Glasses for, is the chat room. Because we have this all the time in front of us. And you get hooked on having people tell you stuff. So thank you, chat room. If you join us live, you get to be part of that. The chat room is, I should mention the URL, although it is on our website, irc.twit.tv. If you don't get to watch live, though, you can always download on-demand versions, audio and video, available after the fact at twit.tv. It takes us a little time to get it edited and encoded, but usually by this afternoon, by Tuesday afternoon, you'll get a copy of MacBreak Weekly. In fact, if you subscribe, you'll get it automatically. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Now, you better get back to work, because break time is over.